Welcome to the Penguin Magic Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Tate. We have an incredible show for you this week. We're going to dive straight into the main event. Steve Reynolds is a writer, creator, performer, and one of the foremost scholars on the work of the late great Ed Marlo. He recently released the Olram File, an updated, expanded, and freshly laid out copy of the extremely rare magazine consisting of never-before-released material from Ed Marlo that was originally distributed by Jon Racherbaumer. Steve took some time to discuss not only how he came to become friends with Racherbaumer, but the process of putting together the Olram File and the best ways to study Marlo's work. Real quick, before we get into the main event, one note for our YouTube viewers. Due to some unforeseen software glitches, the video of our conversation was not usable. So I spent way too much time replacing that video with our Magitars and a cool little audio waveform thing. I caught up with Steve via video chat, and now you get to join our conversation. Steve Reynolds, thanks so much for joining me here on the Penguin Magic Podcast. Congratulations on the new book, The Olram File.
Oh, thank you so much. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. I was very fortunate to get to spend some time with you in Texas a couple of years ago.
Yeah, that's right.
At the Pebble Convention.
Yeah.
And then we've had a number of talks since you working with Penguin to bring the Olram File to market. Before we get to the book, can you tell our audience a little bit about how you sort of became one of the go-to Marlo guys?
Well, my mentor was Jon Racherbaumer. When I was a kid, I wasn't connected to anybody. I mean, probably from, I got really serious around 15. I had that early stage, with the Dover books and magic sets and all that. And then I got Genie magazine when it was still out west, and had access to phone numbers, magic shops. Richard Kaufman's company was producing books, obviously. So I would call these people up and ask questions, and sometimes I'd get answers and sometimes not. And around 92, that's when Card Finesse 2 came out, one of Jon's books. That really introduced me to Marlo's work in a very concise, direct way, as Jon did. Even though he's known for his fanciful language and writing, his technical descriptions are right on the money. And so I got interested in talking with Jon. So it was actually Richard Kaufman who gave me his phone number. I was just some kid, and Kaufman would always take my call. But I was asking him questions about his two favorite people at the time, Marlo and Racherbaumer. So he said, "Why don't you go talk to Jon? He likes to talk, That's what he said. So he gave me the number, and I was 16. That's when I started talking to Jon. And people wonder, was it like hands-on teaching? It wasn't like that until much later, even though I was kind of self-taught with this stuff because I didn't grow up around magicians at all. All my friends were regular people. You know them, regular people. Very strange people, huh?
Oh, I know. This is I have so few regular people left in my life.
So he took me under his wing, and it was on the phone.
Wow.
Just like him and Marlo. Most of his relationship was over the phone with Marlo, and it was the same with Jon and I until I eventually moved to New Orleans. But when I was 21, I visited New Orleans for the SAM convention. That was 1998. And that's where I got a chance to actually meet Jon face to face, which was really the main reason why I went down there. But there was that big convention, which was amazing because I met all my contemporaries and my friends that I still have today, So that was like the beginning of everything, that convention for me. But I had been on the phone with Jon for 6 years. And so it wasn't like a hands-on teaching. It was more like teaching me the attitude of being a student and taking this stuff very seriously and guiding my reading a little bit. And, continuing to show me the corridors of Marlo's work and, all the things that you need to do to be a student of Marlo, which isn't just...
What a great...
Yeah, it's like, well, with Jon, it was like a labyrinth.
What a great way to put it, though.
And Carl Fulvis was right in the middle, and in the depths. So I grew up on all that 70s writing, 80s, not everything. I read, and I'm very well read with John's stuff as well, because being a student at Racherbaumer was, studying Marlowe was like the thing. That's the main, that's the nucleus of John's work was Marlowe for a long, long time. And so that's why. And so when I started visiting him every year, um, I used to go down there every year to visit and hang out. I'd go to his house, and he had these huge boxes, just banker boxes. And that was all the Marlowe stuff on top of the bookshelves. I'm thinking, I think I could climb up there. And but I'd always say, can I just take a peek? I don't even want to read anything. I just want to go whoop, and look into it, just to get a glimpse of because it's just the inspiration. When I was with John, the feeling of being a card magician, outside of anything that's going on in magic, it was like this very private world, but you're connected to these great thinkers, these great creators, and Marlowe was the grand master of all this. And John was his disciple in a way, So it's like I was Luke going to meet Obi-Wan to talk about Yoda. That's basically how it was for me. And so when I eventually moved to New Orleans, guess what? I was given all those boxes. I was given the key to to the the skeleton key
Wow.
to the work. Um, and so this was correspondence and all that, handwritten notes and unpublished tricks, and I read all of it. And all those time cards that he's famous for having written on the back of the time cards at work. And so I read all that stuff, and this was over years and years of studying.
Yeah.
And so, and I'm, a lot of guys they dabble in different people's stuff. They have, and not to say I didn't study Jennings or Vernon. I read the books. It just they didn't inspire me the same way. You know, and so that's why I know this stuff because I'm a very myopic student. I'm not going to learn everything, so might as well learn the stuff that I love. And so that was Marlowe and John. So that's why it is that way.
Yeah.
And so people contact me all the time with questions, even Marlowe students. I mean, guys that knew him, because
Truly incredible.
they had their special time with Marlowe.
Ah,
There's great, very knowledgeable guys that guys that were outside of the city of Chicago, like Kevin Kelly and and Don. They read the books deeply because they didn't have Marlowe all the time. So there's kind of this difference in some of the students. They were there watching Marlowe. They didn't necessarily have to go digging in because they had him. I never had a chance to meet Marlowe, but I was lucky to have John, who was one of the most deep students of Marlowe and his contribution.
I've always loved Jon Racherbaumer's work. You mentioned Card Finesse too.
Yeah.
The Card Finesse books are some of my favorite magic books on card magic, just because they're this really wonderful, uh, sort of just smorgasbord of wonderful sleights that you can take and apply to things. And I think what I really appreciated was how clearly Racherbaumer was able to convey relatively difficult concepts. And actually that's something that I really appreciate from you as well. And we should bring it
Right.
around to the book, the Olram File, because this isn't I to me, one of the most valuable things in the book is how you've updated,
Oh yeah.
clarified the text. Because I've really enjoyed Marlowe's work myself. I'm not nearly as deep a student as you and Rockerwalmer and many others, but I always had a hard time reading some of the books, and I am not I sometimes it just wouldn't convey. He's a hard study, I think, and
Yeah. And that's honestly part of the process is learning how to read Marlowe. And there's guys that have talked about how to read Marlowe, but there's many ways to read Marlowe's work. And as you go further and further and take the time to reread the work, like I did and other people did, you start seeing layers of insights and the humor too. I mean, Marlowe was a very sarcastic guy, and there's reasons for that. But um, one, he was a blue collar factory worker. People tend to forget that he always dressed perfect. Always dressed nice to the sessions, but he's grinding out in the factory. So he had this kind of biting sarcasm that you start seeing the humor in his writing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but but anyway, yeah. So yeah, and one of those boxes was the Olram File stuff. Now I had the Olram File all my life, for years. I mean, as far back as I can remember, I had the Olram File, and I didn't realize that it was like a rare magazine for people now. To me, it's just common knowledge, but I live in a bubble, you know what I mean? I live in my own little world in the middle of the
Yeah,
labyrinth. Um,
I think there was only like 100
yeah,
subscribers to the Olram File.
yeah,
So finding a copy of it.
I had a list of all the buyers, all the subscribers for each issue, and so there's all these names like, oh man. Um, so the box had the a lot of original photos because in the magazine there were drawings by Marlowe's grandson. But I had the photos that were used for those, so the pre-illustration photos and the negatives, which I had digitized, and correspondence between Marlowe. Your dog isn't named Marlowe, is it? There should be a list of
No, no.
magicians that has named their dogs Marlowe. It'd be a long list.
If you are listening to this right now, please let us know in the comments or send a message to you on Instagram if your dog is named Marlo.
John is
We'll
water
start the
middle
list
name.
now.
I mean, there's people back in the day that named their kid Marlowe. That's how much they love the guy.
Wow.
How many kids were named Vernon? Or Carl with a K?
Uh,
Uh, oh, it's nice.
My uncle was named Carl with a K, but I don't think he was named after.
What, did he do good stuff?
Well, he wasn't a magician; he was a rocket scientist. So you had this box, and the Orem files are just sort of normal to you, but you had these negatives which were digital.
Yeah, natives, and I had the handwritten because the Olram File. Think about it; it's like a sneak peek. It's like a peek in the boxes that I was saying.
Yeah.
That's what it is. That's what it originally was for. It was to to dig out and organize, stuff that was written on notes, stuff on a napkin, that kind of stuff, all the way back from the 40s. So the Olram File magazine had stuff from the 40s, unpublished, and then through the 80s, because there were sessions with guys like Armando Gutierrez out of California. He would come in and fly into Chicago and then take notes on Marlowe's latest stuff that he was working on in sessions and variations and finesses and stuff. And then during the publication of the magazine, which was 90 to 93. Now Marlowe died in 91, so they continue him and John and Lee Freed continued it till 93. But Marlowe would send in new stuff, like a lot of Ace assemblies and things like that. And there was a stack of handwritten, stapled. So there's an example where I was reading the Olram File editing, and I realized there was missing information. There was a missing step. So I went into the notes that Marlowe had written. There it was, thank God. And I put that in there. So there was some correction. Now I kept the text pretty much the same. It's just I edited and made sure, sometimes the numbering was off, things like that. Um, but the main thing I did was I brought in to the mix some of the scans of memorabilia. You sort of get a sense of, um, being a subscriber, you get the flyers that John sent out to those people that subscribed. You also get extra correspondence between John and Marlo talking about the contents of the magazine. Um, I always try with the Marlo books because I did prime time, Marlo, vignettes at Tony's. I always have a concept. Like the vignettes at Tony's was I had an audio cassette tape of Marlo explaining 5 pocket interchange effects. So that was at Tony's restaurant where it was recorded with Jack Pyle. Jack Pyle was sitting at the table and recorded. They must have had this this big cassette tape player. And Marlo would just go and talk about each of these methods and why there were variations. He'd say, there's always going to be a guy who says, well, you didn't show the kings. Fine. Here's a method for that. So he preempted the critiques. So then I told Bill Malone that I had this tape, and he's like, oh, Marlo and I got together every Wednesday at Tony's. Oh, good. Could you tell me all about it? And he told me these little stories. That's the vignettes, little vignettes, and each one has a method with it. So it's like it tracks the progression, but it's like, what was it like? So the concept was, what was it like to go to a session with Marlo? Bill would pick him up so it's like you get a walk through to the back table where they sat, and you get a sort of an afternoon with Marlo. And I coupled that with the audio and I got filmed following along with each explanation. So it was like you're sitting at the table with Marlo learning this. And so that was the concept. And so that sort of gave you a bird's eye view, your table side view of what it was like to session with Marlo. And then with the Olram file, of course, it's not a reprint. It's not like a photo or a scan of the originals. This is a complete rebuild of the magazine based on the layout and design of the original. But I call it a reenactment. Besides the fact that, some of the editing, when Olram file was first put together back in the 90s, they literally cut and pasted with paste and scissors. Um, so yeah, exactly. It was just starting, and those guys were always John was always up to speed with stuff, but yeah. And, so I had all those, I know they did it because I had those pages where there were little, pieces of paper stuck with drawings. Um, but I had to recreate it. I had new material. I added a bonus issue. There were 16 issues originally. This one has 17 because there was additional material that I found. So there's a bonus issue. For those that have the original, you get more, more. For me, more Marlo, the better. People say, how come there's so many methods? What are you complaining about? Really? It's like,
I, w- I was curious as to where the bonus 17th issue came from. So there was a planned 17th issue
me.
that just
No, I
from
made it up
because you have the boxes, because you've got
because I got extra stuff.
how did you go about choosing
Yeah.
material for this then? Because I'm sure there's probably still hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of unpublished things because of how prolific he was.
Well, I don't know about thousands, but yeah, a lot. But because Marlo corresponded with many people, and I'm sure there's somebody that's got other things out there, notes and things like that. But it was just stuff related to the material in the magazine. For example, there was a letter which is in the book um, that mentions his card warp version of the card warp. Well, I wound up finding it. Now I did put that into Olram File or Output, my magazine Output that I had put out couple years ago, in issue 18. But I found the letter because I didn't find the letter. It was just some random version, and I found the letter to John mentioning the card warp. So that was supposed to be in potentially.
Wow.
Marlo would send stuff to John and do what you want with it. And that didn't make it in because there's a lot of photos, and it was a lengthy there was only a certain number of pages space that they had available. So I put that in there with the letter, and there were other things, and there was a poem that wasn't put into the magazine, so just things like that, same as the original magazine, little bits and pieces and full routines and bits and pieces of history and things like that. That was what the RM
How,
file, but these were part of the files. So that's what it's all about. It's like a peek into the box.
yeah.
It's the same thing.
How long did it take to put this together? Because
Don't ask.
this is an incredible labor of love.
Yeah. Well, this is my first hardcover publication. Um, 3 years.
Wow. Just living inside this work for
Yeah.
3 years.
But I'm feeling much
Incredible.
better now.
Yeah, no, I mean, on the one hand, you must have this incredible sense of relief
I'm happy that it's out.
out
Yeah.
here to
And I'm waiting for the question. I'm waiting for. I quite frankly, it's like, and I said I'm waiting for questions. Stuff. I just want people to enjoy it on their own. You know, I don't want to get into video demonstrations online, but I prefer it just to be kept
mm.
with those people that bought the book and let them enjoy it for what it is. Let them travel the labyrinth alone. Why? That's my attitude.
That is it's such a great you keep referring to that metaphor, the labyrinth, and it really is a great metaphor for that stuff because there's so many options to go down and
And
ways
lost.
to get in
And lost. Get lost.
this material. Yeah, and it's the book is actually sitting on my coffee table in my living room right now, and you mentioned that card warp. It was one of the first things that I looked at because I picked the book up and I was sort of thumbing through it, and I found myself in the back of it. I was like, "I wonder what the bonus material is," and I saw that card warp, and it's
Nice.
on my coffee table waiting to be learned, and I'm very
Yes, and I wanted this to be a study book too, so I did a full. I had a partial index, just a basic index in the back, and then Gary Plants said, it's a little slim. Basically said that it's a little slim, so that inspired me to go back through the whole book and make a more comprehensive index. I had asked a couple of my friends about whether I should mention the Elmsley count or certain moves. Like, oh no, people know anybody reading the book will know how to do the Elmsley count, but it's not about that. It's about knowing how he applied the Elmsley count. It's a research tool. That's what I mean. There's like layers of studying Marlowe. You can learn the tricks and either do them or don't do them, but
yeah.
then there's the more deeper study of understanding his work on its own as part of its own world and how it connects. Everything connects. That's what I like, finding those connections.
H How would you advise someone to take in Marlowe's work? I
Mhm.
guess is the question, is that like because
Yeah.
I've mentioned that he's a tough study and you have mentioned that everything connects and that it really is something that you do have to study. It's not it
Being a tough study is part of the process. It's supposed to be tough.
so
Why have a crutch?
to take it
John was a crutch. John was the crutch. But it's like No Fear Shakespeare.
oh,
I don't know if you've ever read No Fear Shakespeare. You got Shakespeare on this side, and you got either one. It's got the English, the modern
yeah.
English translation. But it's not meant to be that's what you read. It just gives you tools and understanding how things are structured. So now you can go back into Shakespeare and dig in and really get the
Oh,
goods.
man.
Same thing. So there's no 4 hour, people want to have a 4 hour work week version of Marlowe. It's not the way to do it, in my opinion. So you basically, John always told me Marlo demands rereading. That's not like the person Marlo demands. He didn't demand it. It's the Marlo being the subject demands rereading. So you have to reread, reread. Why do I know this stuff? Because I reread it a million times. And the more you learn, the more connections you make. And you just start making those connections.
That's
And then, so
excellent advice.
yeah, that's a basic thing. Yeah, but, and, you got like the Marlowe magazines just came out. Lots of great articles of moves and tricks and other commentary, like, some background history stuff, technical history of like the slip cut. I mean, read the slip cut, dissertation on the slip cut. Um, but you take text, like you've got an introductory part, and you usually have an end part, and sometimes in the middle, like in the Marlowe magazines and other books. So you get the text. That's just a study skill term, gutting the text by you ignore all the technical descriptions and only find the commentary aspects. Read those. If it's an article on one topic, go and do an overview, gut each of them. You'll find insights about previous ones or ones to come. Now you get a bird's eye view of it. Now go in and read slowly with cards in hand and read the technical part and take your time. Enjoy the process. There's no rush. Slow down.
It, you know, you the way you describe this is often how I tell people about how I reread Card College
Mhm.
at least once a year, volumes 1 through 5 all the way through, and it really is. Uh, Rereading is a huge part of the study. I'm asking you for our listeners, not for my own benefit. Well, a little bit for my own benefit, just because I know that the first time I read Card College, I didn't understand the importance of some of the things. But then as I grew in skill and knowledge, going back through it gave me new context. And I hear you talking about that with Marlowe. And I think that part of it is that got so much material that it's daunting to go through that. But it's part of it is if you want to study this stuff, you just need to start somewhere. Start anywhere, really.
Yeah. So, yeah, anywhere. Where do you start? Anywhere.
Yeah.
Just jump in. And it guides you. You'll be inspired to go, oh, I should get a copy of Expert Card Conjuring and study the table slip cut stuff. And now you start seeing the connection between that and, um, you know, other material. Marlowe was a master of uniformity of action. That was the Marlowe roadmaps that I did, were the fundamentals of the Revolutionary Card Technique series, which was the fundamentals of his technique. Not double lifts and things like that. Those are techniques, those are basics. But I was talking about the fundamentals, the grips, the angular grip, for example. You see throughout his entire work. And so you learn the fundamentals first, master those. Now the world, I mean, it just, and as you learn more and you study more, you start seeing connections. All what seems to be this just random group of ideas actually starts shrinking down, and it's actually pretty manageable once you learn those connections, learn those similarities in technique, and you start seeing how he thought. Like he may have a technique here and a technique over here, but oh, they are linked, and it's part of a process, a part of a progressive approach to card magic. Marlowe was a progressive. He didn't linger. That's why he created more, like the bold atlas from Card Finesse too. I mean, it goes back to earlier than that,
Yeah.
an unexpected card book, but that was for showing people, you do atlas on top of the deck, and if you want to centralize that reverse card, you cut the deck or do a pass. Well, with the bold atlas, there's no move. It's over. So it streamlines it, but it allows you to fool at that time people that were only familiar with the basic Atlas idea. And now they're like, well, what the heck? There was no cut. So there was a number of reasons for these finesses.
I completely, it sort of, it reminds me of other modern performers who've taken that approach. Like, if you sit and talk with Carl Hein for more than 10 minutes about false shuffles, he'll show you 4 different versions of something that on the outside look to the uninitiated look the same, but really he's deeply thought about, well,
Mhm.
this one when I'm surrounded and people are close up. I use this one when I'm elevated on stage and looking at those. And here we're talking about someone who did exactly the same thing, but just so much earlier than many people and just kept pushing forward and forward and forward and thinking, well, what about this scenario? What about that scenario? And then the material is so spread out that soaking all of it in is
Yeah.
what you need to do to start to understand these deep connections. It's I am so excited to go through the Olram File because I didn't even realize it existed. It was one of those where you shared it with, Penguin, and we worked
Mhm.
together to bring it to the community, and I'm so excited to go through it and look at it and actually study and enjoy the text myself. Because and I even had this conversation with you, it's getting me excited in wanting to study Marlowe again and get deep in and immerse myself in it. Because I think that with the current way that we engage with magic in the community, it sometimes makes these older books hard to read because they're working in a language that is just different. Like the vernacular is different. It's
Mm.
different from the way we speak to each other now and the way the written word is communicated. And so going back and spending time in this and looking at things like the Orem file where things are corrected or the photos make it more clear or the layout makes it easier to intake is a great jumping off point, and I'm excited for everyone who gets the Olram file to
Right.
use as a starting off point to then get deeper on their journey with Marlowe.
Yeah, the Olram File is deep by itself. So, but there's subtle stuff, there's challenging stuff, there's humor, there's commentary, there's book review of a book called Beyond Erdnase. You may never have heard of it.
It's I love all of the memorabilia stuff that you put in there, and it also
Well, there was a space at the end because I was finishing the layout and then I wound up with this space. I tried making it so that the right side was always the first page because the front cover is the first page of each issue. I wanted it on the right side just like it would be, if you have the magazine. At the very end of the book, there's this huge space, just empty space. And I'm like, man, now what? I don't want an empty space right at the end. Where's the finish? I need a finish. Um, and I had a number of Marlowe's decks his own personal decks, not the Marlowe deck. There's no Marlowe deck. And I loathe the person who creates the Marlowe deck, with the tier on it or something. Because Marlowe used every card
yeah,
deck.
yeah,
It just misses the point, but I know people gotta make money, right?
yeah.
Um, but I had these decks and I had individual cards that were signed for tricks actually, like, where a card would vanish and he's got his initials on one side and, you know, so I had things like that and I had one with his full signature on it. And I scanned it and that's what I put in the so it was a perfect ending with Marlowe's signature right at the end. And while John had given me a photo of him and Marlowe at Tony's, I think, and John's forward or intro is there, and that's got Marlowe and him, which is good. And then at the very end, Kevin Rylick actually helped me, make this crisper, this photo um, of Marlowe looking, and I have it, and he's looking over at the begin. It's at the very end, the very, very end, looking over at the index, and he's looking, and it looks like he's on. That's right, I did that.
You called it a reenactment earlier, and it actually just occurred to me that it's a great way to describe it, and the feeling of being a subscriber in there is so prevalent throughout the book. I I love the intro letter that John sent out to people saying, because it so encapsulates the humor of both John and Marlo saying, "Hey, you guys might get 2 or 3 magazines a month, or you might not hear from us for 6. We're just doing this. So just keep an eye on your mailbox." And
Milo was a very strict, very systematic guy. He wasn't willy-nilly at
yeah,
all, no way. John was more free,
yeah.
free floater. But yeah, no, Milo was
Oh, it's
bum bum bum, because he was a machinist. I mean, you can. My dad taught Dale Carnegie. How to
yeah,
win friends and influence people, and he would have these. One of his clients was Boeing,
yes.
and in the back, he's like a traveling businessman, so he had all his stuff in his trunk, books and stuff. And there was like this comb bound, it was a helicopter manual from the 50s. And I open it, it's got the comb bound. I open it up. I'm like, this is a Marlowe manuscript. It looks just like, Riffle Shuffle Systems or something with the little diagrams and the type text, the block type. I'm like, Marlowe must have like designed his books to look like, what his machine shop booklets look like. It's
I mean,
crazy.
if you're around it every day, I mean,
Yeah.
it makes sense. Uh, I mean, it's the Harapong Ong book is laid out exactly like a physics research paper.
Right.
It doesn't surprise me that Marlowe's magazines would have been laid out like technical manuals.
Right. And that's part of the fun. You can change the layout, which is helpful, but part of it is not having that. Part of it is the challenge.
It it is a challenge, but it's well worth it because
Yeah.
there's so many great secrets that are
I think
hidden in
the
these.
person that captured Marlowe in a book, recently, a couple years ago, was Nancy Caldwell. Um,
Yes,
the third book, the final cut in the
I think it's the final
yeah, the
cut,
final
yeah.
cut. Yeah, it's the third. Um, yeah, and she captured the look of certain books, the look of certain things. So you get a glimpse into that aspect.
Yes, I remember her showing me some early stuff. Well, I was at the Chicago Magic Lounge, and there was a meeting going on, and she had her laptop out and was working on the 3rd
Oh,
book and seeing some of that stuff being like you talk about somebody who knows Marlowe inside and out. Nancy Caldwell's another one who
oh yeah. She's the if some people ask me
yeah,
who would be a younger, it would be her. We're we go back and
yeah. Well,
so yeah,
oh, absolutely.
kindred spirit there.
Well, Steve, thanks for jumping on this video call to talk with me about the Olram File.
No problem.
I can't wait for the people who
Sure.
are watching this and listening to this to get it and start their own study because you did such a beautiful job with this book, and I can't wait to see the next piece that you bring to us.
Oh, thank you.
That's going to do it for this week, kids. Thanks so much to Steve for being on the show, and thanks to you for listening. I have my copy of the Olram File, and you should get yours while we still have them in stock. It's a very fascinating look into his work, chock full of some great magic. Well, kids, it's spooky season right now, so keep an eye on our YouTube page for some special top 10 countdowns, as well as some other bonus stuff we're working on. Also, just wanted to thank all you listeners for the support over the years. This is the season finale of our 6th season. We're rolling right into season 7 next week. I can't believe we've been on the air this long. Make sure to send in some listener questions for myself and Nick, and we can't wait to continue bringing you some of the best conversations about magic in podcasting. As always, we're a weekly podcast, so be sure to like and subscribe, as well as share your favorite episodes on the social media platform that you are learning to service your brand new pinball machine on. If you wanted to reach out to me about anything on this week's show, you'll have to get between me and the real full-size Starship Troopers pinball table I just put into my arcade. Seriously, you guys, I have an actual pinball table in my house. I'm so excited I could explode. It's Starship Troopers, and I absolutely love it. But if putting a giant, insane, blinking, dinging, unbelievably heavy piece of furniture in your personal arcade isn't your cup of tea, you can always hit me up on Instagram at Eric Tate. That's at ERIKTAIT. From me and everyone else here at the P3 Magic Studios, practice, practice, perform.